This is the Television Enthusiast Podcast, The Weekly Set.
Episode 30, recorded October 22nd, 2015.
Hello, and welcome to the TV Enthusiast Podcast, The Weekly Set. This is episode 30. I am your host, Tyson. Joining me today, as always, are Will.
Hello.
And Kat.
Hi.
So today we're going to be talking about what we've been watching this week. You know, Halloween's approaching, so there's a few kind of scary shows in there. We're going to talk about what's coming up in the next week. There's a few shows, one that's kind of big that we're going to have a little bit to talk about. And we're going to give you a little bit of a hint towards what we're going to be doing next week. So let's get started right off the bat. I've been watching Once Upon a Time. Will and Kat are caught up. They've been watching it currently too. So we're actually going to have two segments talking about Once Upon a Time in this podcast. But where I'm going to be talking about it here is only on season 1. So I just finished season 1 of Once Upon a Time. Big purple cloud monster sweeping through the city.
Yeah. The purple cloud monster is like your first hint at the show you are now going to be getting.
Yeah.
It's like they broke the original format.
Yeah, it's a different show from here on out.
Yeah. So what did you think of first season?
I liked it. There's some weird things. I think I mentioned this before. I know I mentioned it with Will one time, I think before we were doing one of the comic book videos, that there's this weird kind of anti-adopted parents, kind of like, there's these, if you read into it, there's some really weird undertones going on that show. But you can tell, they're just servicing the plot, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's kind of funny. I've been kind of there have been a few moments where I've been watching where I've gone ooh, that's kind of, if you read into that just a little bit, that kind of looks a little weird, you know?
Yeah. Emma's like,
the show has a weird treatment of parents and parents abandoning their children, and lots of drama there that crops up a lot.
Yeah.
Again, it's from the producers of Lost. And everybody on Lost had daddy issues.
Everyone on Once Upon a Time just has parental issues, abandonment issues.
So I'm wondering, did the producers of Lost, did they have bad childhoods?
Every cowboy has daddy issues. That was actually the name of one of the Lost episodes.
There was, yeah.
I do remember that.
But yeah, I've been enjoying it though. There's some cheese to it, but it's no more so than a Doctor Who or something like that. Where Doctor Who will you'll be watching it, you'll be enjoying it, and then something comes and it's you almost have to roll your eyes.
Yeah.
It's but you just accept it.
The writing on Once Upon a Time can be quite cheesy, yeah.
Yeah.
Heroes and true love and
I kind of cringe that the poor kid's mom is his one true love.
The dialogue is always really on the nose, so you can get past that.
Yeah,
but it works, but the cheese, it works for the type of show it is. I don't think I've ever really rolled my eyes at Once Upon a Time, which is good, actually a good thing. Yes. But yeah, it's not a master class in television or anything.
But it's fun for what it is.
It's fun, yes.
Both of you seem to say from discussions you've had before that Regina ends up being kind of the indisputable best character of the show.
Well, in my opinion, I mean, your opinion might be different. I think
right now in season 1, I'm thinking Rumpelstiltskin.
I don't know.
Rumpelstiltskin is consistently one of the more interesting characters.
Yes. I would say Regina and Rumpelstiltskin are the best characters on the show.
One of my favorite characters you haven't met yet, so I can't really go too much into that. But I'm curious. If you were just watching this on your own, would you feel it was enough to? Is it caught your interest enough to keep you going?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep watching it. it might be a little bit slow just because, like fall season's upon us. So it's weird. Like I'll find myself all of a sudden like, oh, I'm caught up on all my shows. Okay, I guess I'll watch them once upon a time.
My interest in watching beyond the first season, watching into the second season was just basically at the end of the first season, everybody got their memories back, so they know who they were. And I want to see.
Yeah, I like that was resolved quickly. Like I thought, like when I was seeing like kind of scenes and it still took place like in modern times and stuff and like different things, I was looking at it and going like, man, are they going to be dwelling out this like nobody knows who they are for like 5 seasons?
Oh yeah, me too. That was like a big worry about me. So basically,
no, and I think breaking the curse early on is one of the smartest things they ever did.
Oh yeah, because it really. Breaking the curse early on really allowed them to open it up and just do all the crazy stuff that they do. And
so when do the TIE fighters show up? I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Chewbacca. I'm surprised that they're, this week they're probably going to have, like a DeLorean will just pull right through because we had a future day just happen this week.
Yeah.
But Back to the Future isn't Disney, or related to Disney, or a fairy tale.
Oh, there's enough connections. Robert Zemeckis has close enough ties, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been enjoying it so far. I'm going to keep watching it. I do like the way it ended. It does have that kind of like a Lost type ending, where like... Yeah. It like resolves kind of most of the conflicts and stuff of the season and then like ends with a big question, like what's this?
What's this? Yeah, and my motivation for watching the second season was now that everybody knows who they were, how is that going to play out? How is that going to affect the show and change the show? And so it does. It's a good cliffhanger, good enough hook to keep you watching, which is what I like about the end of the first season too.
And we're bringing magic into the modern part of it, which is going to be interesting.
Yes, that's actually very interesting. I'm not saying anything.
It seems like with this moment, it's kind of going into full-on fantasy territory, whereas before it was like this weird hybrid.
Yeah,
of like drama and fantasy.
And you could very much tell that people behind Lost were behind the show because the format was similar to where they had the modern day and then they flashbacks to the fairy tale world.
The same like tricking you into watching something genre.
So much say is it's the same people as I would say it was Edward Kitsis and Adam Horowitz. Both of them happened to be writers on Lost and saw the format Damon Lindelof and Carlton Hughes were using and go, hey, we're going to use that format too.
Yeah.
They learned it
I always hear people saying it's made by the same people who made Lost, and I feel like that's an important distinction to make because Lindelof and Carlton Hughes are not the ones.
No.
It is. I'm being kind of generous when I say
they're both doing different things. Damon Lindelof did a few movies. Now he's doing The Leftovers on HBO. Carlton Hughes is doing every show on TV.
It's basically Adam Horowitz and the other guy, basically.
They learned at the feet of giants.
Yeah, they learned. They copied the format and they stole all their actors too. Like every season, like somebody from Lost like just shows up in a new role in that show, and it's because of that there is kind of like a comfort food element to Once Upon a Time that I enjoy. Like there's a little. Like you said, like there's a Losty vibe to it, even though like, I think Lost is a way better show and is like, it's different, in the writing and stuff like that is better and different in the way it's set up. But like there's enough in common that it is kind of like a comfort food, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it.
You could actually play a game with Once Upon a Time and like, guess which Lost alumnus is going to show up next?
So yeah, let's move on. We're going to be talking about Once Upon a Time again, so let's move on for now. Will, you've been watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Now, I just secured the first episode of this through Google Play, so I'm going to check it out a little bit later. But
you can't watch it on Hulu?
Sell us on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Oh, you can't watch it on Hulu?
Oh, I could, but I got it on Google Play, like it was free, so I just snagged it, and I'm like, oh well, since I got it, I'll watch it.
Basically, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is a new show on the CW by Rachel Bloom, who is a comedian best known for like her wacky music videos that she did for like places like Funny or Die. And basically, this is her first TV show, and it's about.
Is she the actress in it or the like creator?
I think both.
Okay.
She stars in it, but I think she's also the creator of it. But basically, it's a woman who is just way too obsessed with this guy that she dated when she was a teenager, to the point of leaving her highly successful job and home to move to the other side of the country just because she finds out he's living there.
Something that would be entirely too creepy if they had reversed the gender.
It's still pretty creepy.
While there, she befriends another equally insane woman who basically enables her and encourages her to continue being a creepy stalker towards this guy.
There's musical numbers on this too.
And there's music. It's a musical too, so there's musical numbers too, which are usually the high points of the episode because they're pretty funny.
Well, that's good to hear.
Is this stirring any interest for you yet?
No, I think his description is she becomes obsessed with a guy, leaves her successful career, and moves across the country to stalk him. Nothing about that sounds remotely appealing to me.
There's something about the absurdity of it that sounds a little appealing to me. They paired it up with Jane the Virgin, which seems like a good fit. They seem like they kind of match in that area.
I can see that.
So yeah, I mean, I'll give it a try. Like I told Will before that like I started watching Jane the Virgin. And I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. It's kind of like a satire of, telenovelas and stuff, and it was kind of interesting. And then it started just kind of repeating itself after a certain point, and it's like, okay, yeah, this concept, there's not too much you can do with it past a certain point, you know? And I kind of feel like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend might fit into the same mold, where like, it'll be one of those shows that like the first half of the first season's good, and then it starts dragging.
I watched the second episode, and all I could think was, this premise just doesn't have any legs, really, because as of the end of the second episode, I was kind of wishing that she was already over this guy, or that this plot about her being obsessed with this guy would be over with, and they'd move on to something else. Because it doesn't, like, it's not something that seems like it's going anywhere. I mean, there's only two ways this can go. This guy gets a restraining order, or they end up together.
Yeah. That's the thing. There are a lot of shows that like come out and they start out with a really strong premise, and then they hit that point where they've run the premise dry, and then the show keeps going. And that's like, there's this weird turning point with stuff like that. I mean, I mentioned it before with like Desperate Housewives as an example. The first season was actually good. As like weird as it is to say that, because when I look back on Desperate Housewives, I'm like, nighttime soap, and I'm kind of like cringe at the thought of it. But then if I think back, the first season was good. It was a satire.
Yeah, the first season of that was good.
The problem was that they wore the formula thin, and then it became everything it was satirizing.
Basically,
I think in that case they kind of lost. Like the first season had a really great hook in why did I'm trying to remember her name, Mary or whatever. Why did she kill herself, right? And they had that mystery kind of holding over the whole season. I think later seasons continue to do some kind of like intentionally crazy storylines. Like there was one character who her pharmacist murdered her husband, and then she started dating him, and he pushed her therapist off a bridge, and like there's just crazy stuff going on. But that like the show was still self-aware in that it didn't have as good of a mystery as first season, and then gradually it became more soap opera and less making fun.
Yeah, it transitioned. It didn't happen like immediately going into second season. There was definitely like a slide. It slid off over time, but because I watched it past the first season, but I remember like, I'd be talking to some people about that you wouldn't think would watch that show, and they were enjoying it too. And then you could see like, everybody kind of had like their little saturation point where they're like, oh, I'm out, and you could just see them slowly dropping off one at a time. And like, I think I dropped off somewhere in like the second or third season. I was like, oh, okay, I'm done.
So basically, what I'm thinking is, there needs to be some kind of twist or something that kind of upends the premise and like changes the direction.
They need to bring magic back to the world.
Yeah, right. They need to bring magic back to something.
The purple cloud needs to.
Also, another thing is like the actress who plays the main character, she's fantastic. That's great, but like everybody else around her is like so one-dimensional.
They're like caricatures.
Yeah, it's like her best friend is like literally just this crazy woman who's like every line of dialogue is just she's there cheerleading her obsession with this guy. Even when the main character like starts thinking like maybe she's not so obsessed with this guy, like her best friend is right there like no, go after him. It's your destiny. You have to.
That's terrible. I think that would drive me crazy. That's a terrible friend.
Yeah, no.
They should make a spin-off series and call it Enabler.
And there doesn't seem to be like any other aspects to these characters so far, and so that's a problem too.
Yeah. So let's move on from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend then. And let's talk about Doctor Who. Now, Will, did you watch any more? You had watched like one episode.
I watched the one I haven't gone around to any more Doctor Who, unfortunately.
It's the fall season. You're like in the same place I was with Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
It's like when you get an opportunity, you'll watch it, yeah.
Right, exactly. All my shows are back, so now I'm like frantically trying to keep up with them.
I get that.
So we've first talked about just the first episode. So there have been quite a few since then. So I'm thinking in my mind right now. We had the two-parter about the coordinates and the ghost.
Yeah.
And then we just had this last week's episode. That's what we've had since the original, right?
I'm sorry?
We've only had 3 since the pilot, right? Those are the 3?
Well, we have the pilot was 2 parts, and then we had a 2-parter, and then we've had what looks to be the first half of another 2-parter, revolving around Masie Williams' character.
Yeah. So yeah, let's start off talking, because we did talk about the main pilot story, because I remember us talking about the whole, like, Missy showing up with the song title or whatever and the thing from the second part. So we did talk about that. Let's talk about the second 2-parter then. The ghost episodes.
Under the Lake and I don't remember the other half. The title of the other half. I remember what happened in the other half.
Any thoughts on the way they did that episode? Or the episodes?
I really enjoyed it. Like, I thought it was, especially once they got into the second half and did that whole, I think they called it the bootstrap paradox, when you go back in time and instigate something that you're fulfilling later on, then who or what really created it. I think he started to take back all of Beethoven's works and publish them as Beethoven than who originally wrote them. So I really enjoyed that. I didn't think it was as well shoehorned into the episode as it could have been, but it's a cool idea. But I really liked the first half. It was tense and fun and funny. Like, that's the episode that the Doctor had his note cards.
Yeah.
If you look at them, they're like, I didn't mean to imply you were all going to die, things like that. That is such a great 12th Doctor humorous moment.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely that comes from the relationship between Peter Capaldi's Doctor and his current companion, Clara.
Yeah. But I'm having fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Did you like the framing device in the second episode with him just kind of telling you about the paradox?
I thought it worked because it's like, okay, it's kind of weird the Doctor's talking to the camera, but at the same time, I feel like they do kind of need to explicitly explain it up front, and I can just imagine that the Doctor is just walking around and started talking out loud to himself, because that's something that he would do.
Yeah. Definitely. So what did you think about this new episode where we first get to see Masie Williams in Doctor Who?
I'm not sure. I feel like I'm not going to have a good sense of it until we see the next episodes. Even though I liked how I didn't really expect them to do this because they didn't necessarily need to do it, but it was kind of cool the way they gave an explanation for why he looks like that character from Fires of Pompeii.
And insert Game of Thrones Arya Stark joke here.
Well, that's interesting with the Fires from Pompeii bit that they fit that in. That's like a kind of they kind of forced that in, but it worked.
It totally worked, especially because, like, as they flashbacked in that episode, in the 8th season premiere, then he did say, it's like I'm trying to tell myself something. So I thought it was, and it also really works for the character of who the Doctor fundamentally is that's who he is. He saves people. Like, it actually.
And he has been reluctant to do that in the past, like, 2 seasons. He's been kind of colder than some of the other Doctors.
Yeah. And so it was but then that's why he needs a companion. That's why Clara. So, I don't know. What did you think of them?
Well, initially, like, the kind of general premise of, like, the big holographic, fake Odin or something like that really reminded me. There was, like, an episode of Stargate that was like this. Where they had, like, the Asgard.
I was thinking that too. The gods are aliens. I was thinking of Stargate during that.
And it was like Vikings, like, type thing, the same way. It was a fake Odin the same way. So there was, like, a weird thing with that where I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like it's mixed up in my head now.
So at the same time, in the Marvel universe, Odin is also an alien, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not a fake Odin, he's like the actual Odin, but he happens to be an alien.
He happens to be an alien. Well, it's put it that way in Stargate too, but the whole idea of the gods are aliens.
Yeah. With in Stargate, it was a false impression, but it was the person who actually was. I think it was Thor in Stargate, not Odin or I don't know.
They had Thor and Loki.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I liked kind of the scene towards the end when you find out that Masie Williams' character is, like, now immortal, and you get that, like, it kind of, the camera spins around her, and you get this kind of jubilation, and, like, oh, she's experiencing, like, all this, the pleasures of time, and, being able to experience so much, and then as it's turning around her, you start to see, like, her facial expression changing, as she is kind of setting in, like, oh, okay, now this is the curse of immortality kicking in now.
Yeah. I think that'll be an interesting thing to explore, because the Doctor's voiceovers, I recall, like, he really emphasized, like, all the negative aspects to immortality.
Yeah, he seems to, like, instantly have regretted bringing her back. It was like he brought her back and was like, oh, what have I done? This is...
It's a horrible thing for anyone to endure that he himself clearly is enduring.
Did you ever watch Torchwood?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you really should watch at least, like, the first. Well, I wouldn't say at least just the first season. Just skip the last season. But I think that there was 2 regular TV seasons, and there was like one kind of special season that was called, I can't remember what it was called. It had a different name. And then they did another one that was like on Stars here. The one on Stars is pretty much garbage. It's not really that great. But the one before it is like amazing science fiction. And the first 2 seasons are kind of a little rough, but going into like the second season of the actual TV show, there is something kind of similar to this in that there's they kind of toy with the idea of like different types of immortality and like how it affects people, and it was like a really interesting concept and really well done.
Sure, probably because Captain Jack himself is.
Exactly, yeah. He's like one side of it, and then there's another one that's like the other side of it, and it's like a really interesting episode. It's the guy in it, the other guy that plays the Immortal. He's have you watched Pacific Rim?
I know, I haven't seen it.
Okay, he was also in, well, I can't think of the character, but way to describe him. He was in Dark Knight Rises as well, but he was like a lawyer or something that Bane sent out onto the ice. And died.
I saw that once years ago, I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, he's really great in the role. Like, you know, the first season's a little rough. It's like they're trying to do Doctor Who, but a little bit edgier. And then they start kind of getting more into like bigger concepts in the second season.
Sure.
So yeah,
and
but
I do love John Barrowman, because who doesn't love John Barrowman?
I guess like anti-gay advocates or
yeah,
pretty much be it.
I don't know. I love John Barrowman in Arrow, so
yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, he's so fun in Arrow.
Yeah. So let's move on then from Doctor Who. Let's talk about Scream Queen. So, more deaths. Are you up to date?
I'm up to date. Yes.
Okay.
I watched the last episode that aired yesterday.
God, the armless frat brother.
Yeah. Oh my God. Trying to
climb the ladder.
Trying to climb the ladder without arms, and of course he failed. And he's like falling, and he's like, "Dude, this is not the night I die." And then the red devil like just hacks him to death with an axe and chops off his head at the end.
Like a golf swing too. It's like
a golf swing. So now he's armless and headless.
Yeah. we also lost aggressive lesbian.
Yep. We lost her.
I figured we were gonna lose her, based on just kind of the development of the story at that point. I'm like, there's not much more they can do with her as far as like what they set up.
Yeah, as far as what they set up, because she just revealed number 5, I think. Chanel number 5's like biggest darkest secret to everybody.
No, that wasn't 5. It was 3, I think.
Okay,
5,
yeah.
5 is the one that's like always on the outs.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Number 6, yeah. Chanel number 3's biggest darkest secret. She revealed to everybody.
We finally got to see why she wears the earmuffs too, or like learn about that.
Yeah, we learned about that.
About her bedazzled earmuffs.
So she sends aggressive lesbian down to the secret room with the bathtub to lay in the bathtub and think about what she did. And that's when the Red Devil kills her down there, which we knew was coming. What's interesting though is like she's like, "Oh, before you kill me, can you at least show me who you are?" And the Red Devil takes off his mask and basically reveals his or her identity to her, and she's like, "Oh, I figured it was you."
We know there's at least 2 Red Devils, and the identity of one of them seems to have been all but confirmed already.
Yeah.
There was a scene where, you know, it was one of the women characters on the show like met up with the Red Devil and they were talking, and that seems to imply, oh, I guess she's the other Red Devil. So
she's either one of the Red Devils or she's controlling them.
Yeah.
And then there's also the implication that Nick Jonas's character is one of the Red Devils too, because he appears to have been murdered at the beginning, and then at the end we see the Red Devil pull his body out of the morgue, and he gets up, and he basically, so basically it implied that he's in cahoots with the Red Devil too.
Yeah. And plus, we know that there was some plan hatched between the woman I was talking about and the dean.
Yeah.
We didn't hear what it was, but then they came back and it had to do with solving the problem of the sorority or something. And so that could be connected into it as well. And plus, the dean's super suspicious.
I loved Chanel's just in this episode where she was she threw that big fit when Zayday won the election and became co-president, and then she goes back and she's like, oh well, that was part of my plan because I watched enough mafia documentaries to know that when you become the boss, you put a big target on your back. she's like, oh, the last thing I need is a Red Devil target on my back because I'm the head of Kappa, and so you got to see her scheming there, and then all the awful things she says about Chanel number 5, everything, and then after she reveals that was staged, she goes, so you didn't mean any of that? And she says, no, I meant every word of it. I just don't care.
She really is the most horrible person in the world. It's funny.
No. Oh my god.
So let's move on from there then. I don't think there's too much more to say about Scream Queens. It continues to be hilarious.
Except that her boyfriend there, the guy who has a fetish for dead people.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it was cracking me up when they were debating the rules of Truth or Dare.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, well, we'll find out who the killer is because if they say truth, then they have to answer the question. He's all, or they could lie. No, it's called Truth or Dare. It's not called Truth or Dare or Lie.
Yeah, it's not called Truth or Dare or Lie. That's how the game is played.
She's like, yeah, but they could say truth and then lie. You just don't get it.
Yeah, that was the best scene of the episode. Oh my god.
Yeah, that was funny. It continues to be a hilarious show. I'm looking forward to a seasonal anthology structure that ends. I don't know what they're going to do with the second season.
Apparently, Ryan Murphy said the second season. Ryan Murphy said in an interview there will be 4 survivors from this season, and then they will show up in next season's story in the same roles, but in different positions.
So they're not going to be. It's not going to be a true anthology series
right.
Story.
It's going to be a completely different setting and stuff, but yeah, it's going to be the survivors from this season will show up in the next season in the new setting.
That's interesting at least.
Yeah, and he said the next season, the next setting is going to incorporate people of different ages instead of just all teenagers.
I guess they'll probably be out of college then, or.
Yeah, or something. Some people speculate maybe it's going to be a summer camp.
That would be kind of cool. I mean, that's a big horror trope, so.
Yeah, that's a big horror trope, so that'd be interesting.
Let's move on then. Let's talk about Quantico. So, you still enjoying Quantico, Kat?
Enjoying is a pretty generous word. I'm still watching. I still feel the same way that I have in the past, and that I said last week, I think, which is that I think the show is utterly exhausting and burns through storylines 10 times faster than it needs to, and it's a very expensive character. So.
Yeah, it's starting to reach that point of where the believability, which was already kind of scarce, is starting to really shed away quickly.
Yeah, it's wow, everybody is I mean, at the end of last week's episode, when we found out that Asher was secretly working with the FBI director and was reporting that he had Alex, I just went, oh, of course he is. Oh, gosh. Like the show.
Well, aren't they all being held now?
Every 3 minutes, there has to be another plot twist.
Oh, I hate shows like that. I really, because the plot twists are always like so ridiculous too. Like,
it seems your spider sense worked then well when you watched the trailer.
Yeah, it's like if anybody tried to watch The Following.
Oh God!
It was just ridiculous with that. It's like.
Did you try the second season of The Following? It was like 10 times worse.
Oh no, I didn't.
All of a sudden there were like 4 different serial killer cults, and it was just like, okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, different serial killer. Oh Jesus. It was like in the first season it was like hinted that like the head of the FBI or something was in on it, and I was like, that is just retarded. I am not doing this.
So anything else to say about Quantico, Kat?
I honestly hope they don't try to expand it beyond one season. I just think that would be a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. I don't know what else they could do with the second season. They'd have to...
Just another class that
also leads to a terrorist attack.
Now the main character is like teaching at the academy.
Oh gosh. Yeah, so I don't know. I'll probably hang on for a little while longer out of a sense of masochism and curiosity. But I'll be surprised if it just doesn't have the patience to be as good as it could be, because it has flashes of being better, but it doesn't have the patience.
Yeah. I think part of that is, I mean, it's a network show, so that means they gotta do, 22 episodes a year? And I think that's a fault in it. I think if the show was like a 10 to 12 episode run or something, then they could do it right, you know?
Yeah.
It's
but
like,
they're just burning through.
it's like next season it turns out the president of the United States is the terrorist.
That's actually happened on 24. If you watch it.
Oh, yeah. That's actually happened on 24, but 24 is like the type of show where that's actually not stupid.
It's still kind of stupid.
Stupid. I guess the way they present, yeah. But like, it's like, oh, the president is solid as Snake.
Yeah. Because
that's actually happened on Metal Gear Solid too.
Yeah. So, let's move on from Quantico then. Let's talk about Heroes Reborn. Now, we don't have too terribly much to say about this. I think we're mostly just going to be snarking on it a bit. Kat, you still haven't checked it out, have you?
No, but I probably won't.
I think you should, just out of morbid curiosity. Like, don't go in expecting you're gonna like it, but go in just like to see how much of a train wreck it is.
You're not gonna like it unless you're completely dead inside. Then you might like it.
It's too bad because they got Jack Coleman back as HRG, and he was a character original Heroes.
Yeah,
right.
but without Fuller writing for him.
Right.
Because Fuller wrote his iconic episode, you know, the Company Man, which was everyone considers like the best episode of Heroes.
Fuller.
That you could put that almost entirely on Fuller.
HRG in the show should be excellent. That should be the high point. It wasn't even a point in what I watched. It was like because they decided to just make every scene with him as stupid as possible for no reason. Because
his plotline makes no sense. It's so stupid.
Because basically the thing is HRG lost his memory and is living a normal life. Of course, they don't tell you this up front because what they do is they give you like a scene where he's delivering like this deep speech about, you know, like just giving us this meaningful speech that seems to be like about his life and his experiences. And then it's a reveal that it's actually a pitch to sell a car because he's a car salesman and he was trying to sell a car to this lady and speech meant nothing. And I was like, oh, okay. And then there's like another scene where he meets this lady and she's like, "Hey stranger, do I know you?" or something, and then it turns out like she's his girlfriend or wife or something because I got you. It's like, no, that's stupid. Stop doing that, show.
Honestly, that's like the best parts for his character, because when it gets into like his actual story, it's so stupid.
Just have an honest, real scene with this character that, we have grown to love from like the last few seasons of the show, and stop playing these stupid BS tricks with him.
So spoiler warning right here. Okay. The reason HRG lost his memory is because he decided to lose his memory, employing the Haitian to wipe his memory. You find this out in the first episode, I believe, one of the first two, because the pilot was like a two-parter. He visits the Haitian.
He did that in the original series, too.
Yeah, but he visits the Haitian. The Haitian tries to kill him. He ends up killing the Haitian in self-defense, and then asks the Haitian, "Why were you trying to kill me?" And the Haitian said, "Because you told me to if you came looking for your memories." Just makes the whole thing so stupid. And then he's still looking for his memories. He's still trying to recover it, even though he's got like all these signs saying, "No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't."
Yeah, no,
and it's just like so stupid. But that's not even like the worst thing in the show. I mean, as dumb as that is, I'd say the worst thing is Zachary Levi's character. Has nothing to do with Zachary Levi himself. He's just, fine man, no problem with him. Loved him on Chuck, In Heroes, his character is it's just stupid. It's like the stupidest arc. He's basically a cold-blooded murderer because like his son died in this big like terrorist attack that killed both gifted people and non-gifted people. And so he blames gifted people for it and decides that they should all die because they're too dangerous. Even if their powers are like stupid and not dangerous at all. Just because they have powers, suddenly they're like dangerous.
No matter whether or not they had anything to do with anything.
Their power could be to make like a fart that smells really good, and he'd be like shooting him in the head. I mean, it's so stupid. And, he's just cold-blooded and merciless, and then he's got this female partner, and she's just even worse. She's like straight on psychopathic, like enjoying killing people and stuff. You find out like that's his wife that they had the son with. So they teamed up together and became merciless killers, like hunting these people down. But not only that, but then like out of nowhere, he just starts feeling bad about doing it. But like it just comes out of nowhere. And then so all of a sudden he's like, "I know I just shot all those people in the head, but now I kind of feel like maybe we shouldn't do this." And then like nothing spurs it on. And then after that, after he starts feeling bad for it, he starts developing powers.
What?
And then he starts using his powers in really stupidly dangerous ways that makes himself every bit the threat that he was concerned with and wanted to kill other people because they were. So it's just so stupid. It's just the dumbest thing.
Oh, that's too bad. It sounds like wasted potential.
It's a train wreck.
Yeah. And on top of it, they're trying to be like some cheap X-Men ripoff where like now all the powered people are being hunted by the government and stuff, and people mistrust them. And
at least they cut back on calling people with powers heroes.
No, they call them Evos, which is worse.
No, I thought the heroes thing was worse because it was like there could be like somebody with powers that was just like a total villain just killing all these people, and they'd be no, we have a loose hero that's using powers.
I think it's a play off superheroes because we tend to.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever formally called them anything in the original series, to be honest.
Oh, they called them heroes in the original series. Okay. Especially in the later seasons as it got worse. It's like Kat said, they were using that as like a play on the idea of superhero, but it just sounded so stupid the way they used it. Because they kept going like, somebody showed they'd have a power. You're a hero too. It's like, not really. I just kind of sit around and use my power for my own gain. Right. No, but you're a hero because you have a power.
Did they call Sylar a hero? I hope not.
I think they just. I don't think they directly called him a hero, but they basically implied everybody with powers was a hero.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that's another problem with this. Like you pointed out, like Zachary Levi being the villain and being like the most unconvincing worst villain ever, and it's like.
I don't blame him though. I don't blame him. I think he's fine when he's being cold. Even when he's being kind of cold and a killer and stuff, I think he's fine doing that. It's not that he can't play it or something.
No, I'm not saying like Zach.
They just the motivation they give is so weak.
But where I'm going with that is like the original season of Heroes, they had Sylar, who like for the first half of the season was like a total mystery, and the way they kept playing him up, like they made him like seem really threatening and dangerous, and then when they finally revealed who he was and everything, he was every bit the threat that they were building him up to be. And Zachary Quinto, he lived up to the hype, and Zachary Quinto was perfect in that role. And
that's what made his career.
Yeah, that's what made his career, and it was a great villain to hang the season around, and it really made you invested in what was happening. And this just has this ridiculous, I'm gonna get revenge. Bam! No, now I feel guilty. Powers, and it's like that's not interesting.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's a total train wreck. Honestly, I am still watching it, but I advise anybody that watches it, watch it because you know it's a train wreck, not because you're hoping for something more.
Right.
Because that's what I'm watching. I'm watching it because it's a train wreck, and I'm enjoying it as a train wreck in the way it's not intended to be enjoyed. So if you go in thinking, but it'll get better, this is not going to get better.
Also, from what I watched, they were putting most of the focus, like, on the hero side, on this kid, for, like, no reason. Like,
the teleporter kid?
I guess I didn't even get far enough to figure out what his power was. It was just like suddenly, it starts out, the beginning of this episode is maddening because it keeps jumping around to different time periods. Like, every, scene takes place in a different point in time. But to the point
30 minutes before, 2 minutes before, 1 hour after. After what?
Yeah, it literally goes like 9 months later, 8 months.
Yeah, the original series did that too in its later seasons.
Yeah,
in the later seasons of the original series, they were doing that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, it jumps around like 8 different time points, and then at the end of the sequence, it goes 1 year later, and you're like, today, and you're like, wait, 1 year later from what? What? But like during that, they focus on several different characters with powers, and then finally they settle on this kid. But there's no reason why we're suddenly putting all the focus on this kid.
Yeah, they just keep saying he's important, and that's still what they're doing. Like they're 4 or 5 episodes in, and they're still just you're gonna save the world.
And they can't give a reason for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really bad. But yeah. That's about all I can say. Yeah. Heroes Reborn, total train wreck. If you enjoy watching a total train wreck of a show, then it's fun to watch for those purposes, because it's just bad. You didn't even get to see the girl that goes into the video games, did you?
No, I heard about it, and just hearing about that just makes me shake my head in disbelief.
Yeah, it's
because also it's an Asian girl, and she knows karate and stuff, so it's total stereotype city.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it is.
So any illusions that this was going to go back to when Heroes was great, shattered. Yeah. They should have left well enough alone, really.
So I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk about 3 shows that you guys aren't watching. But I'm going to talk about them real briefly just to kind of talk about what's going on with them. So first up, South Park. I've been kind of enjoying the structure of what they're doing. I don't know how much I like it compared to some of the better episodes, but what they're doing that's interesting now is that they're doing a serialized season instead of these multi-part episodes or, individual episodes. They actually kind of have a serialized story going through the season.
Really? Oh, that's new.
This whole season is about political correctness. And so they're tackling, each episode focuses on a different aspect of that. in like the first episode, these like frat house moves into town. It's called PC Alpha. And they're like these little like bros, but they're all talking about PC stuff, you know, like you know, you need to check your privilege, you know, bro. You know? So they're like these PC bros basically, and that's what's kind of kicks it off. And then like they have all these jokes about like, you know, you see these farmers and like, oh, it looks like political correctness is back in town. It's like, how long is it going to be? Well, last time it was a couple of years, or, you know. And so it's kind of focused on this idea of political correctness now, and they handle different sides of it. So they hit, like, gentrification they did an episode on, and this last week they did one about, like, Yelp critics and stuff, and just kind of, you know, like the sense of entitlement. And this episode they were doing it on, like, shaming. And the idea of, like, how people want to, like, live in this world now without shaming, and the idea of, like, well, you're just kind of denying reality at a certain point, you know? And so it was kind of making fun of that. Like, people that, you know, filter out, you know, stuff that they don't want to hear or see or something. So it's just kind of interesting. That's all I really wanted to say about it. It's cool that they're taking on this different take. I don't think it lines up with, like, the best that South Park has to offer. But it's interesting that they're doing this as, like, this concept. So, like, instead of going, like, oh, this week we're tackling this, and this week we're tackling this, it's like they're tackling a range of a single issue. So, it's kind of, yeah, I think it's clever what they're doing. I just don't know if it's the best I've seen with South Park, you know. They've had better seasons. Moving on from that, I recently just finished the second season of Penny Dreadful. All I'm gonna really say is I enjoyed it a lot more than I enjoyed the first season. They do a really kind of interesting take on witches that's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, that's all I'm gonna say. They do a lot of good stuff in that. And I've been watching The Walking Dead, and the last episode of The Walking Dead, one of the best in the whole series. So, wow. If you guys start watching, yeah, it's pretty shocking. There's like, everything that happens, it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, oh my god. And like, it just like, everything kind of gets turned on its head, and it's kind of just, it's interesting. And this is like the second episode of the new season. The first episode of this season, they had like more zombies than you've ever seen on screen before, outside of like trailers for World War Z or something. I mean, it's insane. They showed this massive amount of zombies in this area, and they created this real credible threat, and the idea of like why there are so many there, and what's going to happen because there's so many there, and like it's a big improvement over kind of the lack of direction that the series has had in the last couple seasons before this.
Right.
So yeah, it's worth catching up, checking it out, and getting in on it.
Yeah,
it's definitely much better now. So
I'm gonna get myself caught up, and especially since last season's on Netflix now. So
yeah, you need to get caught up, and I think, yeah, I guess you probably can't even watch the episodes because they're on FX. You'd have to use you'd have to have your cable credentials, which yours don't work, or they should just put it on Hulu or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
So that's all I wanted to say about those three series. Now I'm going to kind of tune out for a little bit and let you guys talk about season 5 of Once Upon a Time.
All right.
How are you feeling about it, Will?
So far I'm still pretty positive on it. I like this episode focused on Arthur and what he was all about, which was nice. I really like the episodes of Once Upon a Time that really drill down into a character and like explore them in depth, which this episode did. And so I was pretty happy with it. What do you think?
I think there's a part of me that's like, I can see the value of it, because going forward now, we know exactly what's going on with Arthur and the truth about Camelot and what his motivations are. So I totally see the value of it. But still, there was a large part of me that was like, it's been 4 episodes and we've seen Dark Emma do basically nothing. And I really, really was hoping we would get to see her, like, going around tormenting everyone in Storybrooke. And instead we spent a whole episode getting distracted with Camelot elements. So I'm just, for me, it continually is a disappointment with how they're handling Dark Swan.
Yeah, they didn't do anything with Emma this episode, which I agree was a big disappointment. But
I mean, she hasn't done anything. She's supposed to be like this great big evil threat, and all the characters are already acting like she's the most horrendous thing ever, and she hasn't done anything.
No.
Sit in her house and glower and go downstairs and look at Excalibur, and it's like, I want her to start doing specific things. I want her to start being active. I want her to be evil, and she's not, and I'm feeling
they need her to start doing stuff. She kidnapped Gold, and apparently she's going to be using him to extract the sword out of the stone. What I really hope is, because right now she's focused on getting the sword out of the stone and completing Excalibur by combining it with the dagger. I hope she does. I hope she does that and does that soon. And so that we can then see her use her new evil Excalibur powers to like really mess with people. And I hope that yes, exactly.
I see people online saying, "Oh, maybe this Emma's just like faking this whole thing, and she's really going to use it to try to snuff out the darkness." You know, she's just
that's stupid.
And if that turns out to be the case, I'm going to be like, then why did you turn her dark at all? Like, what was the point of the arc if she wasn't really doing anything dark? I want to see her be evil.
Right, to be evil. So, I hope they don't drag up this Excalibur thing through the whole season. Because basically right now the way they have it set up is if we're waiting for Emma to train Rumpelstiltskin to be good enough to pull that sword out of the stone and like reunite it towards the end, you're basically going to have a Dark Emma that has done nothing throughout the whole season.
Right? Oh my gosh. I'm already starting to become worried that this will be the most wasted potential of a storyline. And unfortunately, there's a lot of precedent for it in this series. I mean, look at the Neverland arc, and we're going to rescue Henry. 5 episodes later, and nothing has happened.
Yes,
the show constantly does that, and it sets its end goal, and it's so bad at like logically at keeping compelling content that like actually has to do with that end goal. And briefly, I just want to bring up a positive example, though I know we don't want to get into that show right now, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., most recent episode, had a whole bunch of things happen that I thought weren't going to happen for weeks, and I'm so glad that they did, because it means that we're not just like spinning our wheels waiting for the exciting thing to happen. It's like, no, they actually had it happen.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
So Once Upon a Time desperately needs to do that.
They do, yeah. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been pretty good this season with resolving plot lines at a good clip that I thought were going to be like season long, or at least take at least half the season.
Exactly.
Once Upon a Time needs to do that, because basically what they need to do is they need to have Rumpelstiltskin pull out that sword in like the next 2 episodes or so, have Emma reforge Excalibur, and then have Emma go after the heroes with her new power, with the heroes regrouping and trying to figure out what they can do to stop her and save her. And that's where the excitement of the story lies, and
that needs to happen like next episode. Yeah, like you said, in the next 2 episodes. Otherwise it's gonna be like, what was the point of it?
Yeah, what is the point of anything? What is the point of the Camelot stuff, of Arthur scheming everything if that doesn't happen? If we get to the end of the season and the big climax is whether the heroes are going to stop Emma from pulling the sword in time, which is not nearly as exciting enough.
Yeah. And I think, and another thing that's bothering me is that, like, every character who's interacted with Dark Emma so far, it's all just been constantly, no, you need to prove to me that you're still you. And my response is, like, they're all kind of treating her like she went out and did this on purpose, and it's a huge inconvenience to them.
Right.
Like, they're not treating it like, hey, she did something really selfless and heroic at the end of last season. Instead, they're treating it like, oh, you horrible person, Emma. It's just a huge inconvenience to all of us. And it's the attitude, the writing is just, it's making my skin crawl.
Right. So I did like the stuff with King Arthur this episode. I thought going deeper into his backstory, his backstory and the way they're playing his story, twisting it, I think it's interesting. Kind of like their way of making Arthur a villain.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the cool things Once Upon a Time manages to do. It manages to put these interesting twists on these familiar characters. Like when they decided to make Peter Pan evil, and you would never. Yeah.
I enjoy that. I think especially because Once Upon a Time is at its best when it's really, because what makes the show work is that it has so many familiar stories that it has different interpretations on them. And when it's most interesting is when it has radically different interpretations on them, because it means that it's making each of these stories its own and exploring them in really different ways. And so, yeah, that's why I love the whole Peter Pan is evil stuff, because that is such a different interpretation on that, and I really enjoyed a lot about that.
Yeah, definitely. That made that season interesting to me, even with like all the pointless wandering through Neverland. That was like boring. Just the concept they had behind it was interesting enough to get me through that. And I liked their take on Arthur, but yeah, they really need to get the plot moving in somewhere interesting instead of dragging things out, especially since they do have Emma being the Dark One, and this is something they can really play with, and they're kind of being reserved about it for no reason.
Yeah. So I'm still cautiously optimistic that it will get better. We still have a few more episodes to go, but yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Cross your fingers. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So we finished up our discussion of what we've been watching. We have 3 shows coming up next week, so let's talk about what is coming up next week. So, first off, by the time this podcast is available, Hemlock Grove will be up on Netflix, the 3rd season. So this is the 3rd and final season. Neither of you watch this, do you?
No.
It's a really weird show. It's one of those shows where you watch and you're like, oh, okay, I could see this is like a real horror show on, streaming. It's real graphic and gory and stuff. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, now it's going for like this whole like kind of weird Twin Peaks-ish kind of vibe. And then like it goes like in this other weird direction. It's like you can never tell where it's really headed. It's all over the place.
I saw Eli Roth and I'm like, no. Eli Roth has never made anything that I want to watch. So
it's kind of all over the place. It's a very divisive show. I actually kind of enjoy it. It is very strange though. And so that's going to be the 3rd and final season is up on Friday. So by the time this podcast is available, that will be on Netflix. I kind of rushed through. I had been watching Penny Dreadful, which I had saved on my DVR since like May or something, and just kind of was rushing through that. And now I'm going to be watching this, and just so I have a horror-themed TV to watch in October. On Saturday comes the long-awaited final season, 3rd and final season of Da Vinci's Demons. This is like weird. It's basically been completed and sitting on the shelf for like a year.
Weird.
This season. So,
wow.
I actually was just listening to a podcast where they were talking about how they actually turned away like interviewing opportunities and stuff with the cast because they had already interviewed the cast about the exact same season a year before. And so they were like, well, we need to kind of deprioritize this. So it was like at Comic-Con. They're like, we have other things we need to do. We already have material to draw upon. for
Right.
this, so it's kind of weird when a show gets, shelved like that. It's Da Vinci's Demons, and, it's an okay show, and I'm gonna check it out and see the final season. Interestingly enough, they're doing what they did with Aquarius earlier this year, where they're going to be airing the episodes, one at a time like normal, but they're putting all of them up online after the first one airs. So you can just kind of go up and binge the whole season online, or you can wait week by week and watch it as it comes out. So this is the second show that's done this so far as I know, after Aquarius. Then here's the one that I think is most relevant to us on the podcast here. On Monday, October 26th, Supergirl.
Yay!
So this could be a colossal disaster or something amazing.
I think
we don't really know.
It'll be amazing. I'm optimistic. I think it looks good, and I trust the people behind it because they made Arrow and Flash.
Right, yeah, I do too. It looks good from the previews, and the talent behind it is solid, so...
We'll just have to see how much it lines up with the Black Widow skit.
Yeah, I know, right? It's already got that, the previews, like, this is my fight song. And I'm like, oh my word. Stop it, you're being the SNL sketch.
They are, but I'm still cautiously optimistic. I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be the Superman to Arrow's Batman and Flash's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Could be.
Definitely.
I am eager to see how this performs. I think even more than I am to watch it. Because the big deal here is this is CBS. This is a channel that normally airs stuff like CSI and NCIS and, insert however many initials here for the show title.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or they air Supergirl.
Yeah.
Very nice.
No, it's SUPER-GIRL. To imply that there's also going to be a Superman and a Superman and it's CBS is normally procedurals. That doesn't mean that they don't do good stuff. They do Person of Interest, which is a great show. They did Jericho when that was on. That was a great show. Didn't fit into the procedural vibe at all. But what's interesting about it isn't that it's just on this procedural network, but that those procedurals do way bigger numbers than, shows like Arrow and The Flash.
Right.
For a show to survive on CBS, doing Arrow at its best numbers is utter failure.
Right.
They're canceled after 2 episodes, Whereas CW would be we got a hit!
The CW's threshold for ratings is much lower because their shows on average do not rate very high.
Not even close to CBS.
I feel like there's got to be a new way of judging this because, first of all, the Nielsen ratings are ridiculously outdated.
Oh, yeah.
And second of all, I feel like maybe it's, and I don't feel like this is only my bias. Granted, I am biased because I love Arrow, but I feel like you're more likely to go online and see people having passionate discussions about Arrow than you are about NCIS. Even though NCIS gets a lot bigger audience numbers because NCIS has a lot of casual viewers, whereas people who love a show like Arrow.
I don't know. Have you ever been to a store that sells walkers?
Say again?
Have you ever been to a store that sells walkers? I think you'll find a lot of NCIS fans eager to talk about the show.
But that's what I mean. I still think shows like Arrow and Flash in their way are still
they generate more
really,
excitement.
really popular. They generate a lot of enthusiasm, and I feel like there's the relevance it's having in the zeitgeist and the effect it's having on that. I feel like there's got to be a better way of quantifying that than how many people were watching it that happen to have these specific boxes, the Nielsen boxes during this time. There's got to be a better method. Anyway,
I agree with you.
But I totally agree with you. I get what you're saying. It does need to have really high numbers. especially to survive on a network.
I mean, it has the potential to. I mean, there's a lot of Arrow and Flash fans are like, I don't know, maybe I'll give it a shot. You know, like, as they see it as like this, like, second bet kind of thing. Like, maybe, you know? But I think it's going to end up just absolutely destroying the rating records of both Flash and Arrow.
Oh, I'm
just because this is a CBS show,
yeah,
just because
it's on a much
marketed.
more visible network.
Yeah, and just the way it's being marketed too. They're marketing to a much larger audience. I mean, they did an event where they brought a bunch of they had a bunch of girls attending,
right?
And kind of try to give them like inspiration to be excited about a strong female character kind of thing. You know? Right. So there's this whole other audience that normally isn't involved in these kind of stuff. I mean, there is some crossover with that, but way, way more so on Supergirl than on the other shows.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're courting a female audience with this. That is the main thing.
They probably don't watch Flash and Arrow.
Yeah, exactly. They probably don't watch Flash and Arrow, and that's the main thing behind this. And the reason the show is there is because the current president of CBS of programming, who happens to be a female, wanted a strong female-oriented superhero show for her network, and that's why
it's smart, you know, because there is like a big absence of that. And so for them to kind of step in when there's so many comic book shows, it's like, yeah, but there isn't a comic book show like this in the sense of like from a more female perspective, you know?
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be the only show on the air only superhero show on the air from a female perspective, starring a female superhero. I think that's important.
And it's only the second one we've gotten after Agent Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had it with Agent Carter and also with Jessica Jones, but those two also, they market more towards a male audience, you know?
Right,
they market towards the traditional comic book audience, even though they have strong female characters.
Yeah.
This is marketing directly at a female audience.
Yeah.
So this is unlike anything else.
Clarifies and say a non-comic book female audience. Because plenty of the comic book audience is female.
Right.
This is definitely going for the broader.
The majority is probably still male, but I think you're right that they're marketing this toward women who don't read comic books.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see how this performs. That's going to be it's going to be telling of how the Nielsen stuff measures up to kind of what's going on, just because it's something it's such a different quantity than what we're used to.
Yeah.
So
probably because, I don't wonder if it's also because every other network has at least one comic book show. They tried in the last year, I guess. NBC gave up on Constantine, but like Fox has Gotham, and ABC has Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the CW has the whole Arrowverse. So I think this is CBS's try, and I sincerely hope it succeeds on every front. I hope it's good, and I hope it does well in the ratings.
Yeah, well, I hope it succeeds if it's good. That's the caveat I'll put in.
You know what? If it starts out not as good, I hope it gets the chance to become.
Oh yeah, well, I'm not going to judge on pilot alone,
right?
Because it was given a chance to become good.
Yeah, I'm not going to judge on pilot alone. This is something that it's going to take some time for it to find its identity, and but it's going to be exciting to see how this ranks, how this hits number-wise, how people react to it, what the online communities are, because there's lots of potential for kind of both good things to come from this, but also some ugliness to come from this. With male audiences that might not be too happy about a more female catering comic book property. There's a lot of kind of things that could happen around this.
Yeah. So. Crossing my fingers.
We'll have to see. It's going to be a big day, though. I mean, I'm expecting some pretty significantly, surprisingly large numbers, at least on the pilot. I mean, we're not going to know if that sustains for the series until more episodes come out or the ratings for those come out. But I'm expecting very strong ratings. 'Cause I think a lot of people that might not even be interested in the show are going to watch out of a curiosity. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that performs and how that does. So that's what's coming out next week. So the week after that, we're not going to be doing a traditional podcast where we talk about what we've been watching and stuff, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be bringing back one of our favorite features here on TV Enthusiast, Advocates of Great Television, Halloween Edition.
Halloween Edition.
So each of us is going to pick a Halloween themed episode, like a, Halloween special basically, but not necessarily labeled as such. A Halloween centered episode of a show, something that we really like. This doesn't, unlike regular Advocates, we're not going to go for the idea of like something that we think nobody else has seen or something like that. It's just going to be like, this is a favorite Halloween episode of mine. And we're all going to watch it, and we're going to talk about those episodes. Yeah, so look forward to that. Next week we'll have something up on that. We haven't all decided what we're picking yet. We've been kind of chattering a little, talking about what sounds interesting and trying to figure out, what we're talking about is kind of more easily available to watch and stuff. So we're kind of going through that process right now, so we're not going to announce the shows that we're doing. But next week, that's going to be the podcast. We'll do that. We'll also, talk a little bit about what's coming in the next week, just because there is some exciting stuff coming in the next week for that podcast to talk about. But it's primarily going to be Advocates of Great Television 4, Halloween Edition. So that's it. Join us next week for that special episode. And until then, thank you everybody for listening. You can check us out at TVEnthusiast.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will on Twitter at Voxel Hero. You can check us out on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page. Look us up, TV Enthusiast. All of the links are on our front page, TVEnthusiast.com again. So yeah, follow us, check us, stalk us, whatever.
I wouldn't go that far.
You can stalk me. Okay.
There you go.
You need to stalk somebody, stalk me. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage of all of